Hi and welcome to my metal shaping YouTube channel. On this video I'm going to show you a piece of a wire edge for a 32 Ford. You can do that same thing with 33, 34 wire edge. Or, here's the important thing, you can do this as well with your own profile. If you have your custom profile or for another car and you have those dies, you can do the same thing with that I have done here, but I've used the 32 wire edge dies for my bead roller. So this will be pretty much the bead roller tricks and tips and tricks. But you see what this one is curved, and I have done that on an earlier video, but this will be a little different. So I'm going to start with a straight piece, and I can show you how you can make your custom curve and how you can adjust that yourself. So let's continue with this, and I'm going to show you the close-up of the dies in the bead roller that I'm going to start with. As I said, I have a video about this wire edge before, but it doesn't hurt to learn that again, and also to see how you can curve it after you have done a straight piece. Here you can see the close-up of the first step of the dies that I'm going to use. So I'm using a small, narrow, flat one, and one of the flame dies as a guide, and this is just the flat die that I'm using as a spacer, so I have 3 in a package there, and 2.5 radius, millimeter radius on the top, which is 3/16 wide totally. And then I set this one from the flame die and out to the center, that is just a little more than 5/16. And I can show you why. Here you can see the test piece that I have done, and this is the bead for a 32 Ford wire edge on the front fenders, front and rear fenders. But as I said, I'm going to show you how to curve this, so that's what I'm going to show you. So the first step is to bend this flange here 90 degrees, or this edge 90 degrees. So I turn this down and it made a little more pressure on it. And then I hold that to the guide there. And then I run this one there and lifting up my hands a little bit. My edge wasn't 100% straight cut. I have too much stuff in my shop, so I couldn't get to my shear quick enough. But I think it is within the tolerances anyway. So I'm lifting up little at a time. Don't start here with 0 and then 90 in the end of the first run. The metal doesn't like that. So you need to stay at the same angle all the time. And if you stop and move your hands, that's what I recommend. It's not a good thing to move your hands or your feet when you run it. Sometimes I do that too, but I'm reminding myself that it's better to stop so you don't get the wiggle. So you see, now I'm up to flat surface here now. So now I can hold it to the die there. So now I'm up to 90 degrees there. That's enough there and good enough for what I'm going to do now. You can see that this one is a little round here, but I'm going to fold this around, so I'm not worried about to have that corner crisp. It's actually better if I have it a little round for the wire edge. So let's go to the next bead roller and I can show you the next step. So I'm over to the 2nd generation bead roller. I set up 3 bead rollers, so that will help me a lot. I can make the videos quicker that way, and it really helps. So this is the dies that I'm going to use. Still the same die at the top here as I used in the last step when I bent the 90 degrees, but I changed the bottom die to this one. So that means that I can bend this now even more up. And that's what I want to fold this over more. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I turn this light down and then I'm going to run this. I don't have a guide now, so this one will be freehand. So I'm lining up the die in that groove there. So it requires a little practice in the bead roller to keep it straight in that bottom there, so you don't wiggle, because if you wiggle, then it's going to affect the bead later on. The flange will not be wide enough or too wide if you go too far in. So you see us bending it up way more now. And this might be a profile that you need for something else. Same principle, but you actually stop here. This is where you want it to go. So there you can see now that we have more than 90 degrees. And the next step now is to put in the wire and lock the wire in before I do the next step in a bead roller. So I'm over here to the sandbag, and I have a dolly here, and I have my favorite hammer. Then I have this piece that I just made in the bead roller, and then I take one of those welding rods that is 1/8 of an inch thick. And what I do first is I put the wire in there and hammer that one in the end there. So I kind of lock that one in there. Then I can keep the wire inside there, and then pull this. So I actually lock in the wire all the way. And what I do now is I make that fold over so it's more consistent all the way, so it's not going up and down, up and down. And that will help it in the next step in the bead roller. The wire is still a little loose, and that's okay, because the next step is going to lock it in and fold this around and seal it to all the way around the wire, if I have done this correct. So that's what I did there on the sandbag. And you can probably, you know, if I want, I can take 2 flat dies in the bead roller and run this one more time, but I don't think it's necessary, and it wasn't necessary on the test piece that I did, so it should be fine. So let's go to the bead roller again and different dies. So I changed the dies, saving a little time. So this is a flat one on the bottom now, and a 2.5 female die on the top. And I'm going to run the panel upside down so I can fold around the sheet metal around the wire. So that's what I'm going to do there, so you can see the whole process. I think it's good for you to see the close-up of the dies. That makes it easier. This thing that I'm going to do now could be on a fender edge for a motorcycle too, or something else, who knows, but this is the same principle. So I'm going to run it from this side. So first I'm probably going to, it's always a little difficult when I have the camera on the same side where I'm feeding it in. I don't want to cover it with, so that's exactly there, that's where I want it to be. So I'm actually keeping this edge here on the right side of the dies there, exactly. So I can see that from the top here. So there you can see what it looks like. I think I should go with just a little more pressure and do one more time. That was too much pressure. There you go. Then I can crank it down a little more. So it folds around the wire really nice. There you can see what it looks like. So the next step now is to go to make another bead roller and make the bead for a 32 Ford. Here you can see the close-up of the dies for a 32 Ford, but you can make your own dies for whatever profile you want. But you see that in this hole here, that's where the wire and the sheet metal going to be, and then this step here going to do the bead on this panel for 32 Ford. So let's run this and take a look at it. So I'm holding this panel that I made with a wire, so the wire I can feed that in here, and I open this up and then I crank this one down. I can always back that off a little bit so I can get the first part down as well. So I'll probably do this in at least 2 steps. And the same thing here now, that this edge here on the sheet metal going to be on the inside, on the right side there on the die. And I need to keep that exactly there from the top. I don't have a guide to use for that. It's guide itself pretty good, but I can't really 100% rely on it. So that's what it looks like after the first run, but I want to go deeper down. And whatever dies you run in the bead roller, make sure that that is the correct depth on the dies, on the bead, before you go to the next step. Yeah. This one is probably good to run several times because you have a little spring in the machine, so it might be better to run it several times. This bead there is now correct for 32 Ford. So let's do a little thing on this one now, and I can curve this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm over to the small stretcher, not the shrinker, and I'm going to curve this. And what I did on the piece before this filming, I trimmed this off. I needed that little wider here so I could hold that in the bead roller, but now I only want a little more than an inch, 1 1/4 maybe. So I can go in here and then I can stretch this edge. And when I do that, I can curve the bead as well. And you can see it here now that I'm curving this. And I prefer to have the small stretcher to do this. For some reason, it actually works best when I can go down parallel with the jaws and stretch it, because I'm stretching it even closer to the bead and the wire edge there, and it actually works best. And then I can clamp it then, and I can bend it down a little bit. If I get a little too much concave curve to it, I can actually bend it down a little bit with my hands to create a little more curve if that is what I want for the fender. So now you can see there that we have a curve. And then you think, you could cut this out in a curve and do it in a curve. But with this technique, you can make a custom edge to a fender. And you can make it so it fits perfect to the tire and the opening, to whatever you want. And then you weld that in. So this doesn't need to be a repair piece. It can be a piece that you custom make the whole edge, which is difficult to do if you have the whole front fender going to do it. But if you do this in a few one or a few pieces and then weld it in, then it works. So that was the piece and tips and tricks for the bead roller that I have for you today. I recommend, if you do things like this, you can use it, probably make a 4 foot, 5 foot, maybe even longer. And you can do that for the bottom of the running board, or you can do the front fender on the 32, but you want your custom edge. So it's just a little different design that you maybe like better. That's what you can do. If you want this one, the whole thing with a wire edge, but you don't want the bead in it, you can use the same technique in my bead roller or another bead roller and just fold that wire in to the bead, and it looks like that smooth finished edge. If you want more information, you can go to www.lazzemetalshaping.com. And if you want more detailed videos and more in-depth videos, longer, shorter, you can click the join button below here and become a member, and you have access to more videos per month. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Here is a bonus for you about the metal that I'm using. When I first came over from Sweden many years ago, I used cold rolled steel in Sweden, and it was fine, but I also learned there that the material that I used in Sweden was, when it was fresh from the mill, it was soft, but immediately it started aging, is getting harder and harder, and after 6 months I could really feel the difference compared to fresh metal. But when I came over here to California, and I asked Ron Covell, my good friend, and he suggested that I should use what they call here in California AKDQ. And it is actually a deep drawing quality that they're using for stamping parts, and it doesn't get harder, doesn't age, it doesn't. It stays the same year after year after year. So it's a better metal to work with. And as you can see here on the paper that I zoomed in for you, so you can write that down, this is the number that you should ask your metal supplier for. And it's a North America standard number that you can ask your metal supplier for in America. And it's an ASTMA number. And they should be able to get that material for you. And so that is the tips there. Below here you have some other information about the aluminum that I'm using, and what they call this material in California. And it's also a phone number to a company in Chicago if you're close to that area where you can get that metal from, or if your metal supplier contact this company in Chicago. But ask your metal supplier for this number here. That's the number that you should ask them for. I hope that was helpful for you. I know that if you use cold rolled steel, you're actually fighting the metal more because it's harder. So it's harder to work with, especially when it's older. So this can be a huge thing for you to change the material to work with.